Woke grandmas are out of control, and some of the stories are getting insane. We're going to break down a woke grandma horror story and so many other of your crazy woke horror stories, personal life situations, and questions for me in this Voicemail Friday episode of the Bread versus Everyone podcast, our daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across the internet, our media, and our politics, all from an independent perspective. Up first, guys, we're going to listen to a voicemail from a loyal listener who has had a frankly pretty disturbing experience with their children's grandmother, who apparently has had her brain rotted by identity politics insanity to the point of openly now being racist against white boys, even though that's what her grandchildren are. Let's take a listen to this story. It's quite something.
My name is Ella, and I used to be very liberal, but I moved away from the city and my mind was opened a little bit more due to the algorithm that was hitting my YouTube channel. And so now I think a lot differently. But recently I was at my mom's house and we had some political people knock on her door and she answered it. And her response to them was, "We don't want any more white men. White men are not the answer." And she said this right in front of her two white grandchildren, which I was completely shook. I said, "Mom, that's very racist." And I was joking with her and laughing about it because I was trying to keep it light, but I was, "Mom, that's very racist." And no, it isn't. No, it isn't. That's the actual truth. We don't need any more white men. And then later we sat down and we all talked about it. And I said, "Mom, that is racist because they're all different." And she goes, "No." I said, "You can't be like that. You can be racist to white people." And she goes, "No, you can't. You cannot be racist to white men." And this is a woman who, when I was more left leaning, we would both agree very much on several different things politically. And we never once had this idea that you can't be racist to white people. And now she's fully embracing it and spouting it off right in front of her grandchildren. And I'm trying to figure out how to get it through to her that she's being lied to and she's fear driven, and this racistness that is being promoted and this violence is being promoted on the left is crazy.
Yeah, wow. It sounds like she has been watching The View too much, or maybe my CNN appearances, and finds herself siding with Anna Navarro. In all seriousness, I mean, it is not a totally uncommon idea in progressive circles now that like white men have had their turn. Now it's back to the back of the bus for them. But it is, of course, a very perverse idea, very toxic, identity obsessed, and discriminatory idea. And it's really gross to say that in front of your kids, right? I mean, this is supposed to be their grandma who loves them, and she's dismissing people because of their skin color and gender that they are in front of them. I would say though that I'm not sure your mom, politically speaking, can be reached right now if she's really that far gone. I think maybe she's still a good person. Maybe she's still a net positive influence in your life. Maybe she still has lots of wonderful things about her, but politically, she might be a little far gone at this current moment. And she might have to come to some realizations on her own to get out of that toxic place. I think what would be totally fair for you would be to sit down with her and try to explain that it is why that is so harmful and why you don't want your kids to hear her talk like that. But at the end of the day, what I would say to her is, listen, we don't have to agree. If you really don't think this is bad, that's okay. But I'm the parent. I don't want my kids exposed to this. So I'm going to ask you not to talk like that in front of the grandkids. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable request, because then you're not even trying to control her or her beliefs or force her to come to your perspective. You're just setting a boundary for what you want your kids to be exposed to, an entirely reasonable one. Now, as for this idea that you can't be racist against white people, what that comes from is a thing in the progressive world where they have tried to redefine the term racism away from just away from just being racial prejudice or racial discrimination, and define it instead as discrimination from somebody with power in society against the powerless. Now, The thing about that description is, or that redefinition attempt, is it hasn't actually succeeded. So if you look up in the definition in the dictionary, you will still find the traditional distinction definition that does not have the power dynamics that you hear in kind of the woke version or in critical theory. But even then, I'd say, okay, so if somebody just I would, if you want to talk to him about this, I put it like this. So you're saying you can't be racist against white people. Okay, so if somebody just blindly hates all white people, what would it be if not racist? And she'll say, well, it can't be racist because white people are a privileged minority, but it could still be prejudiced and bigoted. That's what they'll often say. And then say, okay, forget the word racist. Why are you being prejudiced? Why are you being bigoted? Why are you being intolerant? There's no positive word you could use to describe that. So maybe you could get through to her like that instead. But honestly, like I said, she may be a little too far gone. Try to delete her TikTok account or delete MSNBC from her cable package or something. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. But I hope it works out, and hopefully you can set a boundary and she will respect it, because your young sons should not have to be exposed to that. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't yet. And remember, you can listen to the Brad versus Everyone podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or really wherever you get audio podcasts if you want to take us with you on the go. And send in your voicemails for my Voicemail Friday episodes at the link in the description. Up next, remember the whole concept of victim blaming? Yeah, apparently woke people think it's okay to do in some situations. Let's take a listen to this next horror story.
Hi, Brad. I love your show. You've really helped me get out of like the little echo chamber I was in, and you're literally so funny, and I really enjoy watching you. And I have a woke horror story for you. So, my name's Olivia. I'm 14. I live in a liberal city, and I go to a very liberal school. But I have this Republican friend, and she's really sweet. We love like talking about politics together, as weird as that sounds for like two 14-year-old girls to love talking about politics, but we do. Like, I want to be a political commentator when I'm older, so like kind of makes sense. Anyway, we have lots of liberal friends, so we make sure not to talk about politics in front of them because we don't want to lose friends or start arguments or make anyone uncomfortable. Well, there's this one liberal girl at our school who wanted to know my opinion on mass deportations because, like I said, I'm right leaning. I support Trump, kind of. But I support his mass deportation. So she wanted to know my opinion. I go, well, take instances like Jocelyn Nungary. I don't want that happening. It's 100% preventable, and that's why I'm in support of it. And she goes, well, Jocelyn Nungary asked for it because she snuck out at night. What did she expect was going to happen? Yeah, so I just wanted to, I don't know, share that with you. I felt like it would be interesting content. Safe to say we aren't friends anymore because she thinks that little girls should get to death. Anyway, thank you for listening, and yeah, I love your show. Bye.
Well, that is kind of insane how quickly it all goes out the window. All that compassion and tolerance and empathy as soon as it's a victim of an illegal immigrant crime. Yeah, I don't blame you for not necessarily wanting to be friends with that person. If you're victim blaming minors who were killed, yeah, you're in a weird place ideologically. I think it's great that you and your friends talk about politics, even at a young age. It's okay. I mean, it's an interesting thing to discuss. I would just keep an open mind and try to make sure you're talking to people with lots of different perspectives. And yeah, I mean, talk to your friends about it. And also this girl, like if she's 14 like you are, she said something stupid, don't write her off forever. I mean, she might be a perfectly decent person and just have been, we all said stupid crap when we were 14. Yes, it's a horrible thing to say, but nobody should be defined by the worst or most ignorant or most horrible thing they said as a stupid teenager when their brains are literally still mush. So I would try to explain to her why that's wrong and that's bad. And if she really doesn't get it, then definitely keep your space from her and don't engage in political conversations with her. But maybe leave some space for the fact that she probably isn't a terrible, evil person just because she said something stupid one time. But I think it's great that you're interested in politics at a young age. And I encourage you to read more, learn more, read about both sides, read different ideas, read books, please. I know YouTube is awesome and social media is awesome, but you can read some books would be great. And then if you want to be a political commentator one day, I'll tell you, develop some thick skin because it can be rough out there. And you will have people say the nastiest and most insane and unhinged and nasty things to you. You have people lie about you, just totally casually say horrible things, accuse you of total things that have never occurred for no reason. And you'll have basically no recourse to any of it. At the same time, though, you'll have a huge audience of people that appreciate you, and you'll get to know that you make their lives a little brighter and entertain people and inform people. And frankly, it's not exactly the hardest and most laborious job in the world. So it's a pretty good gig if you can get it. I wish you luck, and thanks for listening, and thanks for your voicemail. All right, guys, send in your voicemails, link in the description. And now we're going to hear about somebody's genuinely insane coworker. Let's listen to this.
Hi, Brad. My name is Jaslyn, and I used to work at the mortuary. I was friends with a coworker, and my manager was a Trump supporter. And usually when I hung out with her, I kept my opinions to myself. But sometimes I would defend my manager, and one time I did, and she got really angry, calling me a piece of shit in front of everybody and bolting out the door. And another instance, we were driving to a job site and she was slandering my boyfriend. For context, before I dated him, I told her I was bi-curious, so she believed that I was gay and that I was ruining my life being with a man. She would openly hate men, white, straight men. But during this ride, she was accusing him of voting for Trump, and I had enough, and I told her, no, I did. He actually voted for Kamala, and she got really angry at me and started yelling at me, saying that Trump was a rapist and all these things. And since then, she gave me the silent treatment anytime she saw me at work. And yeah, I no longer work there anymore. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Wow. Oh, wow. I mean, I hear a lot about woke coworkers or crazy coworkers from you guys, but how are people like this? Like, how do you grow to the age of a grown adult and still conduct yourself in this manner and still be so obtuse and so close-minded? I can't understand it, especially because it's not normal to engage in conflict like that, like to just fight with people and pick fights and ask about sensitive topics and then get mad about the answers in real life. Like, there are certain settings that I go into as a political commentator where I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a debate, or okay, I'm going to spar with this person verbally. But like in normal life, you don't do that. Normal people don't do that. They don't try to start arguments or controversies. If they know there could be a potential sensitivity, they maybe veer away from that subject unless they're, aware that they're in company where that thing can be comfortably discussed. So it sounds like this person is unstable and toxic, and that's really not appropriate behavior for a workplace whatsoever, to scream at people or yell at them or call them names or make them uncomfortable because they have different personal political views that have literally nothing to do with your job. So some of these people need to get it together, and they need to learn how to act in a workplace and hold an actual job, because this stuff is not okay. And they're just going around like little tyrants and little megalomaniacs into the workplace and just leaving everyone around them worse off. It's really gross, not cool. And also, it's like not giving the best image for their side. I understand that not all Democrats, not all liberals, not all progressives fit this stereotype of the like woke, rage-filled social justice persona, but the ones that do are so loud and make themselves so visible that it really gives their whole side a bad rap, because they have the worst possible spokespeople or like vocal representatives, honestly imaginable at times. But you know what? They're doing amazing. Everything's working out great for them. They're just gaining support. They're just winning election. Oh, wait, not remotely at all. So keep up the great work, Democrats. Y'all are doing amazing. And thanks for sharing your crazy story. And I'm kind of glad maybe you just went to work at another place just like this, but working around dead bodies would be kind of weird for me. I don't know. I don't think I could do that, but somebody has to. So thank you. And thanks for listening and sending in your voicemail. Okay, now we're going to hear an unusual take, a different story, a little bit different on the trans athlete debate. Let's take a listen to this.
Hi, Brad. So I have a story about basically it's like in correlation with the trans athlete debate, except usually you hear stories about males going into female fields, but this time it's the other way around. So this is kind of my boyfriend's story to tell because he's a competitive swimmer, and I think it was around last year that a female swimmer, a biological female swimmer that identifies as male, switched to his team because, well, she wanted to, right? And no one could really say anything for some reason. I mean, they could, but they chose not to. Also, I feel like it might be prevalent that we are all in Germany, which is, I mean, it's kind of like a woke apocalypse here. So that's another thing. But basically, the problem here is that when this person competes or in general in training, they always wind up behind or last, which isn't a surprise, of course, because they're a biological female. However, this person keeps on wondering, why am I last? What's going on? And this person obviously feels a bit isolated and left out, and that also the other teammates aren't treating her as fairly, which, I mean, because this person, they view themselves as an equal to the rest of the males on the team when they're not, which is completely fine. But what's unfair is that no one's holding this person accountable. Everyone's just supporting this person's delusions while they always, while they're struggling, right? And, well, what do you think? Because I think it's a bit, unfair to keep this person delusional and lying to them.
Well, tell us how you really feel, my friend. Look, I actually this is an interesting situation because we talk a lot about the trans women in women's sports who are biologically male because it's unfair and it compromises safety, so it's a lot more outrageous. There's this other debate to be had about trans men who are biologically female who want to compete in men's sports. I'm actually okay with it. I think it's fine. I would allow it personally. I would have no issue because there's not the same safety concerns. Females are not really a threat to males in the same way as vice versa. And there's not fairness concerns because they're only putting themselves at a disadvantage, right? I mean, because for almost all sports, and swimming would certainly be one of them, biological males have the advantage over biological females. So if a biological female wants to compete in the male category, they're only disadvantaging themselves. And I certainly think they should be allowed to if that's what they want to do as a trans person. It really doesn't directly harm anyone else. The one part about this that I find interesting is like no one's going to tell them. No. Why? Oh, why am I just so much slower than all the other boys? That would probably be biology, babe. It's almost, I'm not sure that it's kind to just refuse to say the truth or beat around the bush and be like, I don't know, maybe you just need to practice harder. I mean, if it was said politely, it might be useful to point out to this person that, hey, there might just be some physiological differences at play here, and maybe you should compare yourself to female times because biology is a thing. But at least for your boyfriend and for the other male athletes that swim in this competitive swimming league or team or club or what have you, no one's, in my view, really being harmed. So I view it as harmless, and I think if it will make that person happy to compete with the men, so be it. No skin off my back. But it's not exactly beyond the pale that you would be honest with them too about why they're so much slower than everyone else. So I wouldn't blame your boyfriend if at some point he or his coach got real with his teammate and said the quiet part out loud. And as long as it was done in a nice and respectful way, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that. If they asked, you asked, why am I so much slower? If somebody tells you, you can't get mad. That's my take, at least. What do you guys think? Are you guys okay with trans men and men's sports? Definitely let me know in the comments. I'm curious. There might be some differences of opinion on that one. And do hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. Oh, by the way, guys, if you're listening on audio podcasts right now, just take a second and rate and review on whatever platform you're on, whether that's Apple or Spotify, so we can help more people discover the show. Now, guys, I'm going to answer a couple of your questions, including one voicemail from somebody who wants to know what advice I have for potentially becoming a content creator. Take a listen to this.
Hi, Brad. My name's Christy, and I'm a daily listener of Brad versus Everyone and now Normal Gaze. I
Let's
absolutely
go.
love your content. Super refreshing to me. Um, I've digested a lot of your content as well as Blair White, Amir Odom, Clarkson, and many more in the lead up to this last election, and it deeply inspires me to begin a journey for myself of independent journalism, as I don't see enough of it in my own local area. That being said, how would you direct someone with like no credentials, no experience, and like essentially starting from square one into forging this path? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And also, I wanted to note that I love your hairdos since you moved to Miami. It makes me so happy, and you look fantastic.
Aw.
Thank you. Love you. Bye.
Thank you. I love getting these voicemails from you guys. And yes, I did get a new haircut. My boyfriend styles it in a new way, and I really like the way it looks. It's just a lot more work, but I think it looks a lot better. So this was super interesting to me because you guys, I don't know if you all know my exact journey, but I didn't originally set out to become like a political content creator. I sought out to become a political journalist. So I started at a magazine, and then I started doing radio and television. And then I kind of morphed over the years into doing primarily social media and new media like YouTube and podcast. So I didn't set out exactly. I kind of slowly transitioned into it. But I think the advice that I would have is, one, you don't need credentials. Honestly, credentials are hardly, in terms of journalism, are hardly worth the paper you can print them on, because some of the most interesting commentators or journalists don't even have a college degree, or they do, but it's in totally something different. And some of the biggest hacks and like lamest possible journalists have, the fancy degree and the long resume, yet they really don't have any critical thinking skills and are just totally compromised by partisanship. So don't worry about that. The real question is, what niche or what unique insight or what unique content style or subject matter can you offer? Because now, if this was 5 or 10 years ago, it would have been a little bit different. But now the market is very saturated, social media. You've got to have some sort of unique angle or thing to offer. So you talked about local. I actually think there's a big niche that's underserved for like local news and commentary. So if you were to start reading your local paper and then you make an Instagram page and a TikTok page for like New York City news or wherever you're based, and then you start discussing it and bringing people stories and updates, and maybe it's local news, or maybe there's a specific subject that you're really interested in that you become kind of like a go-to person in. And then once you kind of build up a little following through some kind of a niche, you can branch out from there. You're usually not confined to that niche forever. But if you just start making super general commentary about everything, it's very hard to stand out from the crowd. And so some sort of niche or specialization or topic you're interested in or unique thing about you can help. And then also some kind of unique content style. So you can do what other people are doing. You can look at like, oh, people are doing TikTok reactions or people are doing podcasts or what have you. And you can start doing that. But then again, it's hard to stand out. If you can come up with a unique idea for content or for a way to do content on a specific platform, I would start with one. Like, I'm mostly going to just do Instagram to start, right? Rather than try to do them all at once. Or I'm just going to do YouTube, or I'm just going to do TikTok or what have you. Because if you try to do them all at once, again, it's overwhelming, especially if it's not even a job really yet. It's just a side hustle or a side project. So that's the extremely quick, broad version. I hope that helps. And I wish you the best luck because we really do need more basic, sane people speaking out there on all sorts of subjects and topics. Up next, we have a similar question from somebody who is entering journalism school and wants my advice. Let's take a listen.
Hey, Brad. So, my name is Riley, and I'm an upcoming freshman at a very large journalism school in the US. And I've been told a lot that it is extremely left leaning, and so are a majority of the professors. I've watched your content for quite a while, and I know you've had a similar experience at UMass, and I heard the stories. So, as someone who leans more center right, do you have any advice for someone like me who's going into a school like that? I know you didn't major in journalism, but I absolutely love your content and would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, thank you so much for listening and for your voicemail. I find this really interesting because, like you said, I did not go to school for journalism. Maybe if I was doing it all over again, I would, but you don't have to, but I don't think it can hurt. My main advice would be to go in with a very open mind, know that you're probably going to have very liberal professors and classmates, and be prepared to hear them out. But then I would try to get some internships in conservative media or right-leaning media. So honestly, even if you want to email me, my email's just bradpolumbojournalism@gmail.com and ask about this, I can direct you towards a couple places. But if you can, while you're in college and you're going to get kind of mainstream media version of journalism or liberal establishment journalism 101, if you can balance that out with an internship at the Daily Caller or the New York Post or at Fox News Digital or something like that, I think that would really round out your education and kind of give you a perspective that a lot of these people lack, because one of the big problems with like Journalism Inc. and the kind of journalism school pipeline is that it's such an echo chamber and it's so one-sided. And I would say the odds that you have a journalism professor with any connections or his work history or affiliation with any right of center media is very slim. So obviously you're going to get exposed to a lot of interesting stuff. Don't like hold yourself off because, oh, I don't agree with this. I say throw yourself into it, but make sure to expose yourself to other stuff and probably try to explore that in your internship opportunities, because there's a lot actually that you can do while you're still in college in that field. And then a lot of times those connections can help you kind of make your way towards or make the connections that will ultimately help you get that job out of college, which is the hardest thing to do, honestly, because after that, it's kind of all just a chain reaction. But the hardest job to get is that first one out of college. So I'm wishing you luck. Feel free to reach out for more specifics, and hopefully they don't brainwash you too much, but enjoy and honestly have fun with it. Maybe you'll make some really good friends, even if they're like very left wing. I know I did in college, and it's still, in fact, possible. So, all right, guys, that'll be it for this episode of the Brad versus Everyone podcast. Remember, you can send in your voicemails to the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't yet. Hit that like button while you're at it. And with that, guys, we'll talk again real soon.